bucks though.
That's fine.
This space is worth $5.
That's a bargain. All right, here comes Alex. Okay, I'm going to get started. Just let me know if more people come into the waiting room, buddy.
Yep. I'll
Okay.
take care of it.
All right, so this is what we're talking about today is the art of building a scalable sales strategy and why, that's important because you want to have a repeatable system that you can replicate and, have predictable results from and how that increases the value of your business. Okay, so that's really what we're talking about today. And like I said, I'd rather, if you don't have a lot of noise in the background, then feel free to keep yourself unmuted or unmute at will and ask me questions about what we're talking about, or if there's a topic that we're on and you want to discuss that further specific to your business, let's do that because I don't necessarily need to get through all the material I produced here if there is something that's actually going to help you with your strategy and bring things into focus for you. Okay. So the first thing really is what are the steps to really having a repeatable sales model? Okay. And these are the steps, in my opinion. First, you have to have a strategy. And then you can produce a go-to-market plan. And that includes your marketing and prospecting. And then look at, okay, do we need to make any changes to our sales force and how we're addressing the market? Okay. And then execute. Start to execute on it. And then because you're tracking your results, you can now then make adjustments to it. Okay. I just started with a new client. I was telling Fadi this morning, and we've been through two sessions so far. But he really came to me and he said, we need to get a salesperson, and we need a CRM to track things. I'm like, okay, I can help you with that. And we agreed to work together, but we started with step number one. Now, the owner is a second generation owner of a business. They make precision parts for a lot of different cool stuff, and he has another key person, and each of his key person and himself, they handle the two primary markets they're in. Okay. And so we took a deep dive into their customers and how they go to business. They've been growing very well, comfortably with their existing customers. Okay. And they go to trade shows and they catch periodically somebody who represents a good customer. And they want to be more strategic. They want to grow. They're not really growing as like they know they could. Okay. And so they decide, all right, well, we need to hire a salesperson. Well, we took a deep dive into their customers, and we look at tier 3. Tier 3 has 12 customers in it. And when I asked him what his goal was, and he told me what it was, he says, yeah, I'd like to do this in 2 years. Well, I got to tell you, that tier 3 has the potential to do probably 75% of his goal for this year. But more importantly, it gave us the focus of who is that next customer that's going to be a tier 3, and make sure he's not getting tier 5 instead. It could start as a tier 5 as long as it has potential to be a tier 3. But we now know exactly who they're going after. And the question is, and they don't need a lot of them. Actually, if they get 2, they'd be really in pretty good shape. But, I think we'll probably look to get maybe 4, 6, maybe. But do you need to hire somebody to bird dog leads to get 6 new customers? I'm not sure. We haven't gotten there yet, but that's step number 3. So he wanted me to help him with step 3 and then the after execution tracking part. Well, you can't really determine, do you need to make some adjustments to your sales force until you really have a strategy and a plan in place. Okay. And so that's kind of what we're talking about here today. And it really starts with segmentation. So make sure, did you get in?
I see. I don't see a Patrick. I see
Yes,
Alex.
I'm in.
Oh,
I can't
okay,
get my
good.
camera to work.
I did one of these once and somebody wasn't able to get in. I just want to make sure that you were okay. Welcome.
I can see you, you
Alex
just
is
can't
here
see me.
twice. Hey, Ken, I
Oh,
got Alex in here twice.
that's okay as long as he's
And
here.
Bob Gross is here. I'm about to bring him in.
Oh, Bob. Okay, good. Good. Oh, yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So, it starts with segmentation. Now, who are you going after? And what market segments really are you do you need to address? And I was with a client. Well, actually, they're not a client. I'm trying to get them. I was referred to them a while back, and I keep talking to this gentleman, and they keep on buying companies. And he it was interesting because he has 43 branches, and they all operate in a regional territory management system. So each branch, has a region that they're operating in. There is some overlap, but their targets are really municipals and contractors and facilities, people running facilities. And it's interesting to me, and it made me think, does it make sense for them to be really operating regionally, or are some of those markets, should they be really having more direct and a specialization approach to some of them? And I don't know. I don't know whether that's appropriate for them or not, but it's like, what is the market for in the region? How many municipals are there? How many contracts are there in that region? And what percentage of the market do they have now? And they're not going to really be able to be selling to every contract. They don't need to. They need to be selling to the ones that are getting most of the business. And how much of that are they getting, and how well are they covering that? But then when you look at a facilities manager at a commercial building or an office or an industrial building, that's a completely different person, a different market. They buy differently. And so how are they addressing, and then how many of them are there in that region? So how are they addressing that market, or where are their best opportunities, and how can they cover it best with the amount of resources they have? Okay. And, I haven't gotten there yet because I'm still trying to win his business, but, and then what products and services does each segment, want to buy? And so, for example, I have a client that does HVAC diffusers and grills. Okay, so they go to market through distribution companies, obviously, because there's HVAC contractors all over the country, but their growth markets are hospital, surgical centers, and clean rooms, because and semiconductor fab shops, right? The Chip Act. You ever hear of that, Avi? And Alex, and they so they're building these fab shops, and these clean rooms, it turns out, are really built by design build contractors, and so we're really embarking on, for the last 2 years, actually, they've been now doing a direct sale approach into that marketplace, and they're generating a lot of really good relationships, and they're learning what is it that they actually want in terms of a more holistic service product offering. And so they're building out that product in a way that now they're only one of two companies that can deliver what they want, what they really want. Okay. And so, how best to address that market where there's most growth opportunity. And and then you can determine, okay, what's the sales process that we need that makes sense for these markets we want to focus on. And then you can take a look at how you're going to market. Right? Make sense? Any questions about this?
These are basically the basics of a business plan and marketing plan. So
Yeah,
if we have a
that's
good,
right.
if we have a good basis for these, I think it could lead any company to take the right steps, at least theoretically.
Yeah, right. And so specifically with your intellectual property, that it's designed for particular applications, right? And so do you know which markets you're targeting, you're focusing on? Is it?
There are several markets. The thing is, almost every product that you see have microcontrollers.
Yeah.
The thing is that from our end, if we do a marketing plan, we need to see which ones are the most lucrative. I mean, some of them are big, but they will they'll be, for them every penny is important. So I'm not sure if you want to go after them, but like mostly government, military, most of the high tech stuff like Western Digital, all the big companies do products that use logic, whether it's in ASICs or IPs in FPGAs.
Right. Well, so you said, okay, which ones are profitable, or most markets, let's just say, have some sort of logic semiconductor application, but that doesn't really tell me who you're focusing on, and where you need to focus your attention in sometimes it's not always an industry classification or a segmentation of a market. Sometimes it's how they would use what you have, the application that helps you to focus. But the two of you can't possibly cover every single possible application for a logic semiconductor. That's not possible. And what ends up happening is you end up in a lot of different places. But when that happens, you just are catching little pieces of market share all over the place, and it kind of prevents you from really gaining any really substantial market share in the place where your best opportunities are. And that's why it's really important to say, okay, this is where we're going to focus for now, because maybe it's what you said, Avi. It's because of the profitability or where the growth is. And like I said, my client is now focused on hospital surgical centers. Why? Because they revamped all of the standards for surgical centers after COVID, and there's a lot of renovation going on there, and clean rooms because of pharmaceutical fab shops, and pharmaceutical manufacturing, where a lot of the capital is going right now, and in some semiconductor. So it's important to think about really who is your best target. And, it may or may not be an industry vertical, but it, um, it could be how they use your product, or who is it that actually really needs what you have now because of what's happening in their marketplace. And so I think, Patrick, you're in a business to consumer market, right?
Yeah, we sell retail. We are mostly an exterior general contractor, roofing, siding, windows, concrete. Try to stay out of the interior of the home.
Right. And so you probably are finding that, some of this business to consumer criteria is going to be helpful for you in really segmenting your market. So it could be, where the location, for example, there might be certain communities where, people tend to take better care of their homes, right?
You're
Versus
absolutely right.
others.
You're absolutely correct, Ken. And through Google AdWords and SEO, we can target certain zip codes. We can and with targeting those zip codes, we're targeting income levels. I mean, listen, why mess around in communities that they don't have any money? I mean, I'm in business to make money. I got to go where the money's at. So let's go to where the money's at.
Right. But also it's also the their view on how they take care of their homes. So for example, my next door neighbor is he's a facilities manager for Moderna. Okay. And he's like, he invents reasons to have stuff done on his house. He's like, we're like amazed. He's always got somebody else. He just did that, and he's, there's some people that are, they really try to take care of their home and the infrastructure. In his case, he's way ahead of the game, and it's because of his job, his occupation. And then, and you're right, because you're in a business to consumer market. So for you, it's really a lot about marketing.
Well, you got to get in front of that guy. How do we get in
Yeah.
front of that client? How do we get in front of that? The guy that you just described is our ideal client. So how do we get in front of them? And then you got to do a presentation. You got to sell the job.
Exactly. Yes. Good. And so you want to be working referrals too, because you probably get a lot of referrals from happy customers. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they're going to refer you to people that they know who are more likely to want to do something. So that for sure, you want to be making sure you can make that as proactive as possible. I had a client that did that kind of work, the same kind of work you do, and he was sending out postcards. So he would use Quantum. It was Quantum Postcards was the name of the company he was using. And it was kind of cool because, if you're doing a job, you're doing a job, sometimes they put the little, the cardboard thing stick it in the ground, your contractor name, right? Because you're doing that project. Well, then he would also Quantum, you could get all the addresses in a square block area around that home. Okay. And he sent them all a postcard. Hey, I'm doing that job over on 225 Main Street, your customers, and these people are driving by that construction every day.
You can figure it out through the zip code right down to the address of the home on the street, and then you can send out a direct mail marketing to homes, not apartment buildings, not businesses, but homes within like a 2 mile, 3 mile, 5 mile radius. Say, hey, we're working on this area, come check it out, or we finished this job, check it out. You don't really put the address down, you just put the street down, what you did. But I think for us is the biggest thing is, I think for all businesses right now, is that the Google reviews are really the new currency in marketing today. And it's trying to, and that is the referral. I mean, you go to a restaurant, you're going to look at reviews. I mean, and reviews for construction companies is a lot harder than getting a review from a pizza place. It's tough, and then to keep those going. So that's one of the things that we found is that for getting those referrals is you gotta hammer those reviews, and you got to keep doing a good job. And then when they say, hey, you did a really good job, or they tell you some nice accolade, you just tell them, hey, could you do me a big favor? Could you put that in a review and send it and let everybody know?
Make it a little easy
You know?
for them, Patrick. You know what I do
Yeah.
on LinkedIn reviews is you know, because you want to ask people how we're doing. We all are guilty of that. We don't ask our customers enough. Are you happy? You know, what do you really like about it? And when they say something, you know, the two best sentences that they say, you say, hey, listen, would you mind if we put that on a Google review? They'll say, sure, no problem. Well, then why don't I send what I think I heard you say, and I'll send a link to you. So now all they have to do is click on it, copy the two sentences you wrote, paste it, and send it.
Done.
So you ghostwrite it for them, and it's in an email. So it's kind of a reminder that they're going to do it. Otherwise, they'll forget and not do it. You know what I mean? So just make it easy for them. Send them an email, and they just got to click, copy, send.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's good. Great. Awesome. All right. So, and you know, I think for you, Avi, you got to, you know, think about, and Alex, you know, what are the verticals, or is the application? So how can we really focus where you're going to get the best opportunity and the most, you know, traction? And you
Yeah,
know,
like you know, as you mentioned, sorry, as you mentioned, medical instruments. It could be. I mean, the thing is, what we're doing right now. There are a couple of sites that, let's say, if you need an IP, you usually go to the site to see what's available and who has it. And we are there pretty actively. And anytime somebody clicks on our products, we get notified and respond to them.
okay.
However, you know, if we can target a few segments that we want to focus on, even in more detail, then what you're suggesting could be an idea
Yeah.
to explore.
Well, so you actually then do get a lot of inbound inquiries? Is that what you're saying,
Yeah,
Avi?
and the thing
Okay.
is, one thing that kind of boggles our minds, we get an inquiry, and company will sit on it for a year and a half, and then they ask again, and like we don't understand the urgency in projects. Like they could be sitting on it for a couple of years, and then kind of trying to market.
But
So
do you have a meeting though? You do meet with them once, but then they don't do anything for a couple of years. Is that what you're
yeah,
saying?
oh yeah,
Okay.
we meet with
Okay.
them. They get information. They like what they see, and they want to work with us. But then no urgency. All of a sudden, they get pulled to
Yeah.
do other things.
Okay. So yeah, time kills deals. Time kills
Yeah,
deals, and other things take precedence. But you know, you also want to think: are you talking to real decision makers? Because
I'm
I
sorry, I
did
missed
a
it.
I worked with a company that did embedded manufacturing. Okay. And so they would basically design computer systems. So let's just say the business makes security systems. They need a front end computer to run the whole thing, right? You know, if they
Yeah,
wanted somebody to design and fabricate their next gen product, they would hire these guys, and they would design the computer. And you know, it was a process. They had to, you know, design the computer, they put it together, they sent it to them to check out. They'd say, okay, we want to make these changes. They send it back, and they make the changes, and they send it back. And you know, they get paid for this, but that wasn't how they made their money. They made their money when the person who could make the decision said, okay, we're going to start fabricating this product. We want you to start making these for us. And that was the problem, because very few of them went through to payday. They just haven't designed the computer, and then they wouldn't go forward because they weren't talking to the person who could say, yes, we are committed to this product. not just, hey, well, maybe someday we'll use it, right? And they got it, you know, so we were, and that was the problem. They had this marketing guy who was catching all these inquiries, but the marketing guy was doing the sales. And he wasn't navigating the decision process to get to the decision maker to determine, is this a real deal or not? And, you know, so
Yeah, what we see more happening is big companies will get a consultant and say, hey, can you put this into FPGA? Can you help us put this into ASIC? But then the company will actually do the project, or then farm it out to manufacturing site. But usually, I very seldom see where a company use a designer and ask them to actually manufacture it. But it's very common for them to hire somebody to put the design into an FPGA or an ASIC, and then the company will build it.
okay, so that you're dealing with the consultant as a third party. Is that what you're saying?
Not always, but you know, we see it. If a company doesn't do it themselves, they have consultants,
Right.
or their team in India. Usually it gets shipped to the team in India, and then they
Yeah.
talk to the world.
Okay. But Bob, what is your, do you have a really good idea about who your targets are? Bob, you there? All right.
All right, it
Alex?
says tap to speak. Did that work? Am I
Yeah,
speaking? Oh, okay. Do I have a good idea who my targets are?
yeah, your
Yes and no.
markets.
Yes and no. Empirically, we kind of know what we're doing. We know where we're going. We're not really verticalized because automation is across multiple tiers, multiple industries. As far as going food and bev and industrial and grid to charger and stuff like that, we try and come up with all the funny little things. But bottom line is, I can go into a Burger King and sell them fuses. So they're not my ideal customer, but you know, if I'm hungry and you know, it's so yes, we know who our customers would, could, should be. Are we doing a good job of detailing that out and making it happen? No, there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, well, that's what, you know, what's happening with my client I just, you know, described to you. I know I have two other customers that are, you know, one does printing, especially printing, and the other one does packaging. And, you know, one has, you know, like 700 clients, the other one has over 2,000. And, you know, the packaging company, you know, there's five salespeople, and they're like, I'm telling them, you don't want to spend a lot of time with these $500 customers. In fact, you may not want to spend any time with them. And they're like, because they're all on commission, 100%. And they're like, oh, they're guarding their customers. And I'm like, how much, you know, I know these guys only order a few orders. So it doesn't take, maybe it takes you 20 minutes to order that. Okay. But take that 20 minutes and how much are you getting paid on that $500 order with, I don't know, let's say 40% margin? How much are you getting paid for that 20 minutes of time versus these other customers that are buying $800,000 worth of stuff? Yeah, you have to spend more time with them. But when you look at your cost per hour, per order, it's quite a bit higher, right? And so you've got,
I would say there's other considerations there as well, including you may want to spend time with that $500 customer just because you need to take care of a vendor or you need to show some action on a vendor to allow you to go after the $800,000 customer. Or it's also an excellent opportunity to train somebody with little risk.
okay, well, again, you're on step 3 in terms of training people, but I think, you know, you're sure. I mean, that what
political
people want to
reasons to do
buy.
things.
Okay, well, what people want to buy is part of the strategy. But the first thing is who's going to buy it and do they need it now? Right. And this is a thing that salespeople are horrible at, is really, they all say, yeah, they know what our customers want, but they're terrible at getting people's attention with it because they're talking about what they do. That's not what people are thinking about. People are thinking about what do they want, and they're thinking about the problem that they're having with their decks falling apart, or their siding is falling off, or they're behind the game on the next gen product because they haven't developed the logic yet, or that's what they're thinking about. But salespeople keep on telling them what they can do. Sometimes, half the time, they may not even know how they want to solve, how the problem is going to get solved. And so we need to know how to really position what you do against the problem, what they're actually thinking about, and how that's going to differentiate you. And then look at, okay, what is happening externally in the marketplace that tells me that there is likely a robust market here, because you can't be everything to everybody. And if you do that, you're going to be finding you're wasting a lot of time. Okay. And these are just some areas to look. I mean, technology affects everybody's business. When I started in sales, nobody had a computer. Now you guys are all sitting here because I contacted you somehow through some sort of technology, right? Or how people buy. I mean, my new client really is, people are finding him through trade shows or public perception. He said one of his markets is aerospace, and we're not focusing on that right now too much because Boeing's on strike. I have another client that makes batteries for movie cameras, and they were badly hit by the strike that they had out with all the writers, and so that market shifted how desires, because it's all going online now. So we're focusing our attention on the dealers that have an online presence, because that is how the cameramen are actually buying the product now, and then economy, and how many customers do you currently have, or how many prospects are there out there, and how competitive is it, or if there's any regulatory things that are impacting your customers' markets that could be real big opportunities for you to focus on. Okay, so now you focus, and then you aim and adjust. So you've got a strategy. Now you can put together your go-to-market plan. That's your marketing plan and your prospecting plan. Okay, and they're not the same. So with Patrick, we were talking about how is he going to market, which is important because it's a business to consumer market. You're not, there are people periodically, will knock on our door asking us if we need any pest insurance, or, somebody puts something in the mailbox saying, hey, I'm a tree service and I'm in your neighborhood. I mean, yeah, you could do things like that, but it's not really direct sales as much. What's important now to Patrick is, okay, what's your sales process? What's your sales process to close the deal? Because at the end of the day, it's really a transactional thing. Are they going to buy it or not? And can you help them with making that decision while you're in front of them without looking at the job? Because you got to go look at it. And what's their process to make that decision? Or is there another decision maker that you know, I've got to talk to my wife, husband, whatever, and you know, not so much prospecting. Okay,
We're kind of a
but
too close call company. So like you have a good point. There's a lot of companies that they won't even come out to your house unless both parties are present. We don't do that. But I think you brought up a good point before, you know, when the sales process, you know, we're so quick to tell everybody how much we know. And I think that one of the things that we've learned is, you know, just kind of go in as a physician, you know, what hurts, you know, why am I here? You know, and try to
exactly,
try to
yeah,
do a diagnostic of what's going on. I mean, and then sit down and take notes and listen because they're going to tell you what they want. I mean, yes, we want to sell this product, but let's hear from them because with the internet today, everybody's an expert to some level on any product that anybody is selling. And so we've got to figure out what knowledge they have on whatever that product is that we're selling, because we're either going to sell against it or we're going to sell with it. And so I think that that's the thing is just we can find out so much information on how to position ourselves in the sales process by listening. And I think
yeah,
that that's one thing that has really gone away is that people are not aware how smart people are. I mean, they have like a Google PhD, which is dangerous, but they're smart, you know, they're really
yeah.
smart.
That's so right, spot on, Patrick. You know, and you know, you can't be listening if you're doing all the talking. It doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're in there talking about what you have and what materials make sense to you and how you do it and how you are more safety conscious and quality oriented and you get the job done on time, you haven't learned anything. And you need to learn what is their compelling reason to do this job in the first place. Because, you know, there are going to be a certain percentage of them that just want to know what it will cost if they need new gutters and, you know, and not do anything. And they may not be consciously thinking, hey, that's my agenda, I'm going to do nothing with this information. But there are people in that mix, and you've got to find out, okay, what is that compelling reason for them to do business, and listen to what they say, and then you'll know really, are they committed to the project or not? And if they're not, fine. But you know, you don't have to spend a lot of time on it. And then
Well,
how will they make that decision? And are you on the same page with what they want to spend?
Well, and I think that you're right, you're absolutely right. And I think that what I try to promote to our sales staff is, and myself as well, is that, you know, one of our best leads that come in here are the repair type. You know, I have a leaky gutter. For me, that's probably the best. We're all trying to hit a grand slam home run. And you know, it's like a leaky gutter. I don't want to go look at that. It's like $100, you know. What we find though is we go out there and we give them the good news and the bad news. Yeah, you have a leaky gutter, but you know your roof has met its life expectancy. And you had anyone look at your roof? The best part about that lead is that we're in competition with nobody. They don't know what they don't
Yeah,
know what they know or don't know,
yeah,
and they
yeah,
don't know that they need all this other work. And you know, we take a job that's $100 repair job and we turn it into a $30,000 remodel. And there's no
yeah.
competition. They don't know what they
Eh,
don't. They're not getting three estimates.
Yeah, well, you know what, Patrick, it may not be right away. It could be over 5 years, could be over 10 years, but
Big
that's
time.
the point. And they're not going to nickel and dime you. You know, we had a guy that did what did he do? He did some inside work for us, doors. He put some doors in, and we did some outside you know, woodwork for us. And then it came time to do our deck, and we couldn't even get a price out of the guy. And you know, he pushed us a whole year because he was too busy. And we finally got referred to these other guys, and they came over and they said, "Yeah, we can do this. This is when we're going to do it." And they came in and they actually saved us some money, and they knocked that thing out. And we've been referring them to other people, and we would not hesitate to use them again. And we don't have any reason to use anybody else. And we got a painter that does the same thing. He's very reasonable. We don't, you know, we know that he's not going to gouge us price wise. He does a good job. We just got to get into his queue, and he doesn't make us wait. And you know, that's the kind of customer you want to have. And so but it's in the initial deal, is where you really want to have a sales process to be able to know, are you wasting your time or is this a real deal? And just make sure that you're qualifying properly. Okay. But anyways, so, you want to have that marketing plan where you are, focused on the right markets. You know exactly what they want. So that way you can get their attention with either prospecting or marketing and be highly differentiated. So they recognize you as different in something that's important to them. And then you can now put messages in place where they see it and put an action plan in place. Because people need to really have an issue or they're not going to make a change. Then they take a look at, oh, do we want to address this now? And what's our strategy? Then they start to explore options. Okay. And this might be the problem you're having, Avi and Alex, is like, okay, by the time that somebody's exploring options, a lot of times they tag somebody else. And this is another thing from my new client that I was telling you about. They are focusing mostly on with purchasing people, and they have to, because these are big corporations that they're dealing with. Okay. But the purchasing people don't own the problems that they solve. If they're not getting quality parts, if there's a quality issue, if they're not, as knowledgeable in helping them to develop their next gen product, or they're manufacturing they're not delivering the parts in the quantities or frequencies they need, then the purchasing people don't own any of it. Okay. And they can't necessarily say yes all the time. But then you want to become the new status quo. So, what are you doing to prospect? Which channels are going to get you to the right decision makers in the right quantities? And then what's the formula? So return on invested time, and ROIT, is, there's different, you have to know how much activity you need to do in the channels you select to make sure that whoever's doing the sales is doing enough activity within the channels they've selected. And we try to get our clients working 4 active channels concurrently, so that they'll have 2 or maybe even 1 that's bringing primarily most of their opportunities at any given time, but the other ones are feeding them strategically. But if you're cold calling, it's normally like a 2% return on invested time. But if you're dealing with alliance partnerships where there's an ongoing exchange of opportunities, and there's people that are personally introducing you, that's more of a 95% return on invested time. Okay. And, the other thing is too, once you've determined who is it that you're going after, a prospecting plan needs to start with a good quality list. Okay. And with accurate contact information. And this is an ongoing struggle in our industry, is to get, unless you're investing in Zoom Info, which is the 10,000-pound gorilla, it's getting quality data and phone numbers and emails, but you can get lists, just so you know what companies are there with these, list services and the lower cost, options like Data Axle and AZ Database. They actually sell to the libraries. You can get information free if you have a library card, but the quality, there's going to be like 20% bad data in there. And then the mid-priced, maybe a couple thousand. They use Bombara too. They have intent data in there, and then Dun and Bradstreet tends to have more accurate information, but it's more in the $7,000 range. And then using LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, if you're on Navigator, you can get good quality lists. You just don't have the contact information. But there is software that you can use to convert that list that you get off of Navigator and convert it into contact information. So if you need any help with any of this, you can let me know. Right. So, but the part of the problem is, a lot of times, particularly manufacturing where we operate, it's just, people are waiting for leads to come in, and they do, or you're relying just on marketing and not prospecting, or you're just dependent on a single channel, or not devoting enough time to actually prospect, or having a plan, or tracking to the effectiveness of your sources. So it's important to have a strategy where you're understanding where your best opportunities are, set goals based on your real expectations for market penetration, and then have a plan in place to get there, and monitor the performance, and then have team members that operate independent of you. Okay. Then you can figure out, okay, what is the sales force structure we need to address this market, and how many people we need in specific roles, and what responsibilities will we expect from them, and we can communicate to them what we expect. Okay. And it's important to look at, okay, who we have now and what roles, what percentage of their time are they spending doing different activities, in order to determine if we need to add resources, where do we need to add those resources to, number one, adequately take care of our customers, number two, address the market opportunities that we have. Okay. Any questions about any of this?
Hey, Ken, I put a few questions in the chat box just to get some participation and take advantage of your expertise. So you guys are welcome to ask Ken directly. We'd like for this to be more of a training, a discussion, and feel free to leverage as much as you can. Just wanted to share that. I hope that helps.
Yeah, questions in the chat. We want to ask the questions?
Yeah, either ask you directly, or if you're more comfortable, put it in the chat box. You could do that as well. The last question that I listed is, what are your top 3 metrics and KPIs do you track most consistently for your business? Thought it related to this, what you were just talking about, Ken.
Yeah,
in regards
Jason,
marketing and prospecting.
Yeah, I kind of haven't paid attention to your business, Jason. It's interesting that you are you're a specialist, right? Because even though you guys operate in a lot of different markets, your focus is in the educational market, right, Jason?
Yes, that's correct. We have 4 different verticals.
Right. But you're focused on education. Now, K through 12 is a pretty broad market. And
very much.
So you probably are operating in geographic area around where you're located. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. And basically in the Mid-Atlantic. So we have, like, the 4 states, our core 4 states, but then also we have an office in California. We've got employees in Texas, Arizona, Florida, Las Vegas. So we're kind of all over the place. We're a nationwide company, but our backyard is Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware.
Yeah. Okay. And so that's but still there's a lot to cover, because every community, now you're talking about every community, and so even almost similar to Patrick's situation, you could probably be a little selective on which communities to go after, and it's a lot of ground to cover. How do you prospect?
So three different ways, right? You know, obviously doing email campaigns, inside sales, cold calling, business development type stuff, and then account managers that are in the field. And we break it down from 2,000 plus students. So when you look at like $1 per student, like in education, every school gets some form of money, right? If you think
Yeah.
about it like that. So there's reoccurring needs that they need annually, and then at the same time, there's new needs, and it just depends on what their technology budget is, this, that, and the other. But when you break it down dollars per students, that's where you're going to focus the heart of, you know, what you want to do in terms of who you're prospecting, who you're going after. And that it typically is 2,000 plus students. So that's an account manager, right? Someone that's going to show up, be present, whether it's a district or a school, right? So it could be both. Sometimes you have a district, and within that district, there's 5 schools, and that's what, you know, calculates the 2,000 students, totals up to 2,000 students. Sometimes it's a school that might have 4,000 or 5,000 students, you know, inside of a school district that has 200,000 students. It just depends. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And then from 1,000 to 1999, that's inside sales, and then anything under 1,000 is market or email campaigns and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the account managers, the inside salespeople are really dealing with the customers you already have. And
No, they're cold calling.
they're cold calling. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's harder these days to get people on the phone, but at least they're calling on the phone, right? Instead of
Correct.
emails.
Yep.
Emails are way less effective these days.
Yeah.
Just I think partly because we got so inundated with all the new technology that came out of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, people will answer the phone if you're persistent enough and you do enough dials. But it's
Right.
and I think
dialing for dollars, no doubt.
yeah. But you know, when they do, they got to be really rocked. You know, going back to, you know, what we were talking about with Patrick is, you know, are you talking about what you do, or are you talking about what's on their mind? And
so it's a little bit of both, right? Because
yeah,
sometimes, you know, you're fortunate enough to see a technology plan, to see meeting minutes from a board meeting, to understand, you know, what they're going out for, what they're talking about.
yeah, they may already be talking about it. Yeah, and that's good. So you can use they can use their experience to try to be on target, on point with what the pain points are that's top of mind with them, at
Yep.
least to get that conversation, and then they can turn the conversation into a meeting. That's the objective. And you probably would want to maybe pull in some other channels for prospecting. I'd have to talk to you about it, but I think whether you want them to be diverting from just doing the dialing to, you know, do some networking, or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they certainly want to be getting some referrals if they're an account manager,
Right.
and then strategic partnerships. So
Yeah, well, that's when you're looking at your architects, your GCs, your ECs,
right.
right? You want to make those relationships, because then you're getting in front of, you know, some of the new construction as well as, you know, remodeling.
Right. And so those are just some additional channels that could help make them more effective. We'd have to talk about which ones make the most sense and what's the best use of their time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that. Maybe I can give you some ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Any
raised some good points, because in the past, anytime you presented something new to a customer or potential customer, it'll take at least three interactions, because the first one is no thanks, we don't need it. Then maybe, and then the third time they'll warm up to hear about what you have to offer. And as you mentioned, like now, it's a lot more difficult to reach people by phone or emails. So it makes the process even longer if you cannot catch them someplace. So
right.
this kind of take us back. You said that in the past, there was also an app that will enable you to extract actually all the contacts from LinkedIn. So if you know of current apps to do that, that'll be great.
Yeah, I'm using one now, but it does more than just convert, enrich contact information. There's some that do just that. I can let you know about. All right, so we're kind of out of time, 1 minute left. If does anybody have any further questions they want to ask? And if not, I'm happy to schedule some time with you with 30 minutes and we can talk about any of these things, your strategy or your marketing plan or your prospecting plan or, referrals or what you're tracking and how to do that, or your sales process and sales structure and size.
Yeah, Ken, I sent you an email. You could please reach out to me. I would like to discuss with you. That'd be great.
Okay, who's that, Patrick?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah.
My contact is on my email, so you can just give me a call. A little busy this afternoon, but maybe we'll email and we'll set up a time. Thank you.
That sounds good. Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate your participation.
Patrick, before you leave, I'm about to drop for everybody a link, an anonymous link to leave feedback for Ken in this session today. What you expected, what you got out of it, so we can make sure that we continuously improve the content for the session. Again, it's anonymous. It goes to me. Ken does not see it. In fact, he wasn't even aware that I was putting this together for him today.
Perfect.
Surprise, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye now.
Okay, bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks, Fadi.
My pleasure.